everybody, it's Kira and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be talking about my favorite books of 2018. There was a lot of good books that I read this year, but these ones just kind of stand out in my mind for different reasons. So they're not really in order, but I'll kind of be going like least to best, but like not really. A lot of them like change position and whatever. So let's just get into it. So the first book I'm going to talk about is Geek Arella by Ashley Poston. This book is just such a cute book about fandom. It's a Cinderella retelling, but it takes place between this girl who is watching this TV show and this guy who is an actor who is replacing a role. And so they end up like meeting, but under strange circumstances, and it has to do with Comic-Con and like all of these fandom things. And it was just so cute and fun and light and fluffy and just everything that I wanted from a Cinderella retelling. It was so wonderful and I just super enjoyed my time reading it. Next up is Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. This book took the world by storm this summer. It is an amazing fantasy book that is centered around like I believe it's South African mythology. I could be wrong, but I know that it's centered around African mythology, which is very different from a lot of YA fantasy books that we get nowadays. And so that was like the magic system was so cool and so different to anything I'd ever read before, and I really found myself enjoying that aspect of the book. It ended like, whoa, did not expect that ending, and I really fell in love with the characters, and just it was such a fun time reading it, and I was super excited for the next book to come out, and it was just like I just enjoyed my time with this book. Next up I'm going to talk about The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. This book destroyed me. Oh my goodness. It is a book told in verse, and it's about this girl named Xiomara who learns about slam poetry and decides to make that kind of her escape from her everyday life and from her overbearing mother. And it was just such a good book. It was the first book that one of the first books I've ever read told in verse, and it was a very different reading experience for me, and I just found it so like compelling. Like you felt like you were in Xiomara's head and like you just really felt for her, and it was so cool to see that like slice of life type story, but like about a character who felt very real, and it was just such a cool story, and I'm really happy that it's won a bunch of awards this year, and I'm super excited for it because like it deserves all of the awards. Another book that destroyed me was The Light Between Worlds by Laura E. Weymouth. This book, oh my goodness, it is full of angst and emotion and just so many feelings. Like I can't even explain to you about it. So this is about, it's a little bit of what I wanted from the Narnia series that we didn't ever really get. And that is, it is about three siblings who live in World War II, and they live in London during the Blitz, and they end up going to a magical world, and they stay in that magical world for a few years, and then they come back, and it's like no time has passed in our world. And so then it really just deals with them figuring out how to like function in our world again. Big trigger warning for self-harm, because that is one of the themes kind of in the book, is like how this one character deals with being back. And so the first half of the story, you follow one of the sisters, and it follows her like kind of deteriorating mental state, and then she ends up going missing. And so the second half of the book follows the other sister and how she deals with it differently than her sister, and then her like trying to figure out where her sister went and what happened to her sister. And it was so good, and that was something that like the Narnia series doesn't really talk about at all, is like how the characters felt, like especially the Pevensies when they come back from being in Narnia for 15 years and being kings and queens for 15 years, and then they come back and they're kids again. That's not something that's really explored. It's just like, oh, they kind of dealt with it, whatever, it's been a year, they go back in Prince Caspian. But like, what? There's no way that you can live somewhere and grow up for 15 years and then come back and be a child again and like just be okay with it. So this book like really explored that feeling of like finding where you belong, and like how do I deal with having this secret that like I can't tell anyone else about because they'll think I'm crazy, and like all of these things. It was just so beautifully written and reminded me a lot of Narnia, and it was just so magical, and I loved it so much. Next up is The Darkest Mind series by Alexandra Bracken. I finally read this series this summer. I hadn't read it before, and I don't know why it waited so long to read it. It was phenomenal. The movie wasn't as good, like, it had a lot of problems, but the book series were so good. And then we got the new one of The Darkest Legacy with Zoo's story like 5 years later, and that was amazing too. Like, it was cool to see her story a little bit more, and just like the found family aspect of The Darkest Minds was so fun, and I like how they explored their different powers, and like the story got very intricate, and it was just a really good dystopian, and it like threw me back to like Hunger Games and Maze Runner and Divergent vibes with the whole dystopian thing, because that was, you know, all big a few years ago, and so it was just really nice to get back into that world of dystopia, and it was just such an amazing series, and I'm really happy that I read it this year. Next up, I'm going to talk about Redeeming Love by Francine Rivers. This is a really heart-wrenching story. This is a retelling of the story of Hosea from the Bible, but set in historical fiction in the gold rush of 1850. So it's about a girl named Angel who is a prostitute, and this guy named Michael Hosea, and he just feels compelled to marry this woman, and you're just like, what? She's a prostitute, and why do you feel that call? And it just shows like how Angel learns to find love that is like unconditional, and it was just so beautiful. It was very hard to read, definitely an adult book, so like content warning for like stuff about prostitution and stuff like that, but it was just so beautiful and heartbreaking, and just an amazing book. I'm so happy that I finally read this year. Another book that was super heartbreaking is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. I only have the dust jacket because my friend is borrowing my copy, but oh my goodness, I can't believe that I waited this long to read this book. It was phenomenal. So if you don't know, this is about a girl named Star who is going home one day, and she's going home from a party with her friend, and then her friend gets shot by a white cop, and it just deals with the fallout from that instance happening, and it was so good. It definitely made me look at myself, and it really made me question how I am viewing these things that happen in real life to real people, and how my being white influences how I see that instance. And it was just such a like beautifully written book, so heartbreaking. The movie is fantastic. If you haven't seen the movie, please go see it. It is an amazing adaptation of this book, and it was just phenomenal, and I loved it so much. Another book that really made me like look at myself and how I view things is An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. Again, my friend is borrowing my copy of this book, and this book is so cool. Like, it's such a unique idea. So this is about a girl named April, and she's walking home one day, and she finds this like weird statue that she decides to name Carl. So she and her friend make a quick YouTube video, throw it up, whatever, just for fun. She wakes up the next day, and she finds out she is an instant celebrity, and this really deals with how April like navigates being a celebrity and having instant fame, and what that really means for her, as well as the sci-fi aspect of these like robot statue things that have been dropped all over the world, and like how then there's this cool, it's just so amazing. I really loved this book. April is definitely an unlikable main character, but she's written in such a way that she's very complex, and like even though you disagree with her decisions, you kind of understand where she's coming from, and she feels very human. And Hank Green, like being somebody who is internet famous, he has a very interesting perspective on things, and so it was really cool to see his thoughts on fame and social media and how we use that and how it influences everything, and it was just so cool and definitely made me think about that. And last up are two sequels that like you had to know were coming on this list. And the first one is Muse of Nightmares by Laini Taylor. Again, my friend is borrowing my copy. She finished it, she loved it, I loved it. Oh my goodness, this book was so good. It was everything I wanted. It like took the world of Strange the Dreamer and like just made it so much bigger, and it like kind of goes in a sci-fi way almost, but then brings it all back together in just a beautiful way, and you got more of all these characters, and oh my goodness. So in Strange the Dreamer, I really disliked Thayon Nero. Like, he was so annoying to me, and I was like, you are the worst. But in this book, it made me think of him like Kuzco from Emperor's New Groove. Like, he's super annoying, but like you kind of love him for it almost, because he like doesn't know any other way. Like, I don't know, it just totally shifted my view on Daihaniro, and it was so much fun. And like, this book was so amazing, and I encourage you guys, please read Strange the Dreamer so you can read Maze of Nightmares. And again, like, Laini Taylor's writing is so beautiful and just magical. It was so amazing. And then the last book on this list is, of course, A Reaper at the Gates by Sava Tahir. This is the third book in an Ember in the Ashes quartet, and like, the feels. This book destroyed me in so many ways. We got more of all of these characters and more of the world and more of the story. And there was a huge character reveal that I like totally did not see coming, and like also killed me. And like, oh my goodness, I love this series so much, you guys. It is insane. It was just such a cool book to read, and I am so excited for the fourth book, which she's writing right now, which is exciting. But yeah, I just fell in love with this series, and I was so happy to have a new book in the series this summer. So there you have it. Those are my top 10 books that I read in 2018, just the favorites. I love them all so much. I had such a good reading year. I'm so happy with it. And I might do a little like year in review type video. I don't know, we'll see how I'm feeling. But that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Comment down below, let me know what were your favorite books in 2018. I'd love to chat with you down in the comments below. So, also, if you want to follow me on social media, all my links are in the description as always. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!